Hi everyone, my name is Lydia and this is what I wish they taught me about econometrics and introduction. In a previous video, we saw and talked about the dummy variable trap. In this video, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and to make sure that we emphasize a little element when you consider whether you have fallen into the dummy variable trap or not, because sometimes it might look like you have, but you haven't necessarily done so. For completeness, I'm going to stick to the example that we've seen so far. So let's assume we have a dummy variable, which is 0 or 1, 0 being unemployed and 1 being employed. Now imagine that we have an Excel spreadsheet of 6 observations. So we've got ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, this was a little 5, 6. We've got dummy here, and let's assume that this is all the sample I have, just the 6 observations, and I've got 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0. Okay? If I want to then create, so on top of this dummy 1, if I wanted to create a dummy 2, which is 1 for unemployed and 0 for employed, then normally I would have had here 1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. Okay. If we had tried to do some sort of regression, which is y equals to beta 0 plus beta 1 d1 plus beta 2 d2 plus an error term, this would have clearly been wrong and we would have fallen into the dummy variable trap. Why? Because clearly d1 plus d2 is equal to 1. So there is a clear relationship between the two. However, what if this data set looked slightly different? What if instead of these 6 observations, what if we had the 6th observation in here, no available information. So we don't know whether this person is employed or unemployed. What happens in this case? Well, technically in here, you have now created a 3rd category of missing observations. So it means that you won't be able to clearly say that D1 plus D2 is equal to 1 in here because for this particular one, you don't have information. It might not be very clear when you just have 2 dummies, but then imagine for a categorical variable when we went with unemployed, full-time, part-time, and then you also have some that are on benefits. So you've got a 4th category, which is not really what you wanted to happen. So then you're going to have D1, D2, and D3. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have information everywhere for here, here, and here. For the second person, you don't have any information everywhere because he's a category that you have not taken into account. The third is information you've got for the 3 of them, and the 4th, let's say, again, you don't have information, and the 5th, and so on. So if you fall into these kind of cases where you don't have all of the information for all, or if you are not creating a dummy for this like 4th category that you have in here, the moment that then you run a regression, which is beta 0 plus beta 1 d1 plus beta 2 d2 plus beta 3 d3 plus an error term, then this will be fine to run because obviously D1 plus D2 plus D3 does not make the entire sample that you have. There are some unexplained or uncategorized observations in here, so the sum is not going to be exactly 1. Given that you eliminate this relationship, this perfectly linear relationship between the 3, then you can technically get out of that dummy variable trap because you haven't fallen into 1. What you might have to be careful about, though, is that sometimes the software that you're working with will recognize that maybe you have only like 2 or 3 observations that are not categorized in, let's say, a sample of more than 1,000 or 2,000 observations. And given that this like subsample of the missing values is so small, you might still have issues with running this regression, and you might be given that one of these categories will be dropped automatically from your software. So while you have cases where you don't fall into the dummy variable trap, just be sure to always double check how many observations you have in each and every group to make sure that you also understand how the software that you're using is making use of that information to make that decision of whether it's dropping one of the categories clearly available or not. I hope this was helpful to raise a little flag and a warning so that you are more aware into how the different groups and the different subcategories are shown into your data set, and how to make sure that you check that you have fallen or not fallen into the dummy variable trap. So always be aware of the information or the little warning notes that your software gives to you so that you know what the next steps that you need to take are. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next videos.